Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I thank the gentleman for the recognition, but I also thank Mr. Nadler as chairman of the Judiciary Committee for bringing this important statement of our American values to the floor of the House. I thank him and our colleagues from the Senate, Senator Kamala Harris, Tammy Duckworth, and Mazie Hirono, 3 Asian American members of the United States Senate, who were so instrumental in advancing this important, as I said, statement of American values. And yes, it is a good use of time for us in the House of Representatives to state our values, to remove all doubt that people in our country are respected and that we are not using a pandemic to have people, I'll go into that in a moment, but let me just say this. Before the distinguished leader spoke, the gentleman on the other side said, where are you when you're talking about violence, this or that? We're there. We support peaceful demonstrations. We participate in them. They are part of the essence of our democracy. That does not include looting, starting fires, or rioting. They should be prosecuted. That is lawlessness. I'm very proud that Joe Biden has presented the clarity of that, making a distinction that I don't think our colleagues quite understand, but the American people do. And a poll released today said that the American people support congressional Democrats over President Trump in terms of dealing with the issue of crime in our country for all of their misrepresentations. It's interesting to hear the revisionist history that the distinguished leader put on the floor of this House. When he asked us, what have we done? It's a very long list. And I'll go into some of it. But I want to say to him, when you had the majority and the presidency, the one thing that you did was pass a tax bill that put $2 trillion of debt onto our children and giving 83% of the benefits to the top 1% in our country. And yet you resent the fact that we want to invest more money in making it safe for our children to go back to school, more money into crushing the virus, which is what we do in the HEROES Act, that we want to help our heroes. That's why it's called that, our state and local employees, our state and local governments, which provide services to the American people, our healthcare workers, our first responders, our police and fire, our transportation, sanitation workers, our food providers. All of those people working make life go on for us. Without them, we couldn't. And our teachers, the custodians of our children for a good part of their day and of their lives. And yet the disdain that the Republicans have for our heroes is clear, because that is the obstacle to our bringing the coronavirus legislation to the floor that is so needed. But I hope that we can reach agreement on that. So when they talk about accomplishment, you had a president. You had 2 houses of government. What did you do but take care of the top 1% to the tune of 83% of the bill that would put $2 trillion of debt onto our children and their future? In terms of China, I take second place to no one in this body in my opposition to China for 3 decades. Sometimes I take pride in being called the most disliked American in China. For my opposition to China, their trade policies, which have been a ripoff of the American worker and have fought them for decades, whether it's stealing our intellectual property, barriers to our products going into China, and other violations. Trying to stop their proliferation of weapons, technologies of mass destruction to rogue countries and delivery systems to make delivery possible of those weapons. To their human rights policies in Tibet, in Hong Kong, now with the Uyghurs, and again all over China. So I have been on it every single day for over 30 years. I need no pontificating from the leader on the other side who seems to have newly arrived at this issue in order to deflect attention from the fact that the Russians are trying to once again infiltrate and jeopardize the security of our elections. Whoever interferes with our elections must be dealt with, whatever country it is. But all of a sudden, it's all about China and not about Russia. I think the American people should decide who the next president of the United States is, not Vladimir Putin. And so we come here today, and I say this about the legislation because we've had 4 bills that have been overwhelmingly bipartisan on COVID. Our first one in March 4th, was testing, testing, testing. And still we do not have a commitment from this administration that we can crush the virus by testing, tracing, treatment, mask wearing, sanitation, ventilation, separation. Still, the solution is as plain as the nose on your face that should be covered with a mask. And yet, the president said he didn't want to cause panic, but he doesn't mind causing panic that will result in some terrible things happening to the Asian American community in our country. It's brought about great angst as the legislation shines a bright light on the injustice experienced by so many, including the surge of violence and discrimination being experienced by Asian American and Pacific Islander community. So I thank the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus Chair, Judy Chu, the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Chair, Joaquin Castro, Congressional Black Caucus Chair, Karen Bass, for their leadership